Good morning. We'll continue with the formative elements of tragedy according to Aristotle. Preference for a fatal plot. According to Aristotle, the plot should be so framed that it arouses the emotions of pity and fear among the spectators, which is the function of a tragedy. A tragic plot, therefore, must avoid showing a perfectly good man passing from happiness to misery and showing a bad man rising from misery to happiness, and also showing an extremely bad man falling from happiness to misery. The first kind of plot will not inspire pity and fear, it will be simply odious or horrible. The second is not tragic at all, and the third will move us neither to pity nor fear. Hence, the best plot, according to Aristotle, is one which shows a good man but not a perfectly good one, suffering as a consequence of some error or fault, that is, hamartia on his part. Plot and character and their comparative importance. As regards the comparative importance of plot and character, Aristotle is quite emphatic that plot is more important than character. He goes to the extent of saying that there can be a tragedy without a character but not without a plot. In order to explain that plot is the fundamental thing, Aristotle compares plot to the outline sketch of a painter. Just as the colors, however beautiful they are, have no meaning and significance without the outline, so also the tragedy has no soul or significance without a plot. It is the plot which, like the painter's outline, gives meaning and significance to character. In this respect, Aristotle has been much misunderstood. Firstly, it should be remembered that by character here Aristotle does not mean dramatic personae, but moral bent, the tendency or predisposition to act in a particular way. In life, character is determined by action and is revealed through action. Actions which are repeated become habitual. Character is thus subordinate to actions which determine the bent or inclination of the person concerned. As in life, so in the tragedy, character is subordinate to action. The moral nature of a person is revealed only when he is faced with alternative courses of action and chooses one of them. It is his choice, in a way, in the moments of crisis which reveals his character. Therefore, obviously, there can be no tragedy without action, for in such a tragedy, nothing will happen, but there can be one without character. Then is the next point is the dramatic unities. Aristotle's intention in writing the Poetics was merely to examine the practice of the best poets and playwrights, and on its basis to make suggestions for the best procedure to be followed by would be playwrights, and not to lay down on any set of rules. The misconception arose from the commentaries of Renaissance critics who formulated in rigid terms the so called Aristotelian rules regarding the three unities. In fact, Aristotle emphasizes only one of the unities, that is, the unity of action. He is against plurality of action as it weakens the tragic effect. There might be a number of incidents, but they must be casually connected with each other, and they must all be conducive to one effect, the effect aimed at by the dramatist. As regards to the unity of time, Aristotle only mentions time in relation to dramatic action. Comparing the epic and the tragedy, he has written, quote, "Tragedy tries as far as possible to live within a single revolution of the sun, or only slightly to exceed it, whereas the epic observes no limits in its time of action." Unquote. So there is merely a suggestion, that is, tries as far as possible. There is no rule that he has given. He never mentions the unity of place at all, or even say that it is desirable, or confines the action to a single place. Sources of tragic pleasure. The end of tragedy is to give pleasure, and tragedy has its own distinctive pleasure as well as the pleasure which is common to all poetry. According to Aristotle, the function of poetry is to give a certain refined pleasure, and this he goes to counter the view that the poet is primarily an ethical teacher. Each kind of poetry has its own aesthetic pleasure. Aristotle recognized the value of the emotional effects of poetry. Plato has condemned poetry because of its disturbing emotional effects. But Aristotle points out that it brings us a sense of relief through catharsis. The source of tragic pleasure may be listed in a way. Number one, the pleasure is derived partly from our natural sense of harmony and rhythm. Verse and rhythm are not necessary, but they certainly enhance the pleasure of poetry. Number two, it is also derived partly from the instinct of instinct of imitation. It is pleasure arising from seeing a thing or action well imitated. A successful tragedy therefore gives pleasure because it satisfies our basic instinct of imitation. Poetry is imitation, and imitation of something with which we are not familiar increases our knowledge, and to know, to learn, is pleasure. But these two sources of pleasure are common to all poetry. Tragedy gives pure pleasure as well. It imitates action and life. Its action, it action and life, its pain and misery. And if this imitation is well done, it is gripping and absorbing. There is a total emotional identification of the spectator with the person who suffers on the stage. Pure pleasure therefore results from the exercise of our emotions, senses and thoughts on the tragic action. In this way we smile through our tears. Thus tragedy gives pleasure because it results in enhanced understanding of life and its problems. The unity of the plot, the diction and the spectacle, etc. are other sources of pleasure in a tragedy. To conclude, we can say that the main feature of Aristotle's theory of tragedy, there might be some weaknesses. Aristotle knew only Greek tragedy. His conclusions are based entirely on the drama with which he was familiar, and hence his views are not of universal application. But despite all that, it can be said that Aristotle's theory of tragedy is the foundation on which all subsequent discussion of literary aesthetics has most securely based itself. And Aristotle's views might have been challenged, but their history is the history of tragedy. Thank you.